if more new nurses learn that thriving early in the profession isn't about being the toughest nurse, but it's about being the most human.
Oh, that's so powerful. I love that. It's not about being the most toughest nurse, it's about being more human. That's really good because we are human and we're dealing in a human industry.
I think when we bring our humanness into nursing, it actually makes us better nurses.
Welcome to The Happy Nurse, the podcast that encourages nurses to offer themselves the same compassion that they so freely give to others. I am Elena, a registered nurse on a mission to reduce burnout in nursing. Let's jump in.
Hi everyone, it's Elena here, the Happy Nurse. And today I am joined by Deanne Geddes. Deanne is a nurse educator and coach. She has over 11 years' experience in a range of clinical and non-clinical nursing roles. Her passion in coaching focuses on supporting new nurses to transition into practice with balance, confidence, and care. Drawing on her own journey through burnout and recovery, she now empowers grads to build sustainable careers through mindset, self-care, and holistic strategies. Welcome to the Happy Nurse podcast, Deanne.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. I'm really excited to get into this conversation with you because I think that grad year, even the last year of our training and that transition into practice are crucial points in a nurse's career. So I love what you are doing with the grads because I think extra support during that time is really important and can set us up for success.
Absolutely.
What was it that attracted you into the grad space?
So, I guess first of all, when I started my grad program, I knew I didn't want to do bedside nursing forever. And I knew I wanted to work with new nurses just from my experiences as a student and then as a new grad. So I had some great facilitators and mentors and some that were not so good. And I saw in myself and in my peers, when we didn't get that support that we needed, it was really, really difficult. And so when I started my grad program, I was like, I've just got to be tough and push through. Like we are conditioned from the start of our courses, from our nursing training, that, nurses just have to have a thick skin. We've got to toughen up. We've got to, you know, do all of these things. And everyone around me seemed to be doing it. So I just figured that's part of the job, right? Um, but when you don't get the support you needed, and I wasn't getting the support I needed, um, and I wasn't able to push through, I thought, well, I'm just not cut out for this. People go, oh, you just can't hack it. You're not meant to be a nurse kind of thing. And I think that that's a really important thing because nurses are supposed to be the most caring profession. And yet we say if you're not tough enough, then you can't be in the profession. So it kind of conflicts with each other. And we know that up to 25% of nurses quit within their first year, in their grad year. They do all these years of study and then um, they don't finish because it just gets too hard too quick. And I guess, we also know that there's a lot of nurses that burn out and struggle and even beyond their grad year. And when I had that problem only 3 years into my career, I thought, well, imagine if we had grads equipped to deal with this stuff before they actually hit the ground. Like they wouldn't have to recover from burnout.
That's such a pertinent piece there, that equipping them with the skills they need. Because like you said, I'm sitting and I'm listening to you and taking in what you're saying. And I remember when I qualified being a bit like how you described, it's just like, right, I've got to toughen up. I've got to just get on with this. And I think I was a bit like you, and all through my training, I knew I didn't want to do ward nursing. It wasn't for me, it just wasn't my thing. And I'd done theatre when I was a student, and I was like, this is my place, this is where I want to go. So, but my first job, 'cause I was in Scotland, we didn't do grad programs back then. And I ended up in orthopedic trauma. And I'm very grateful that I did now looking back at it, but I did 6 months there and oh, it was hard. It was really hard. And I was only 20. I qualified as a 20-year-old. And yeah, it was tough. But you just kind of put your head down and go on with it. But when I now that I know what I know and I look back, I just think, oh my gosh, what would I say to 20-year-old Elena, with my 25 years of wisdom that I've got now? Yeah, it's a real kind of crucial time in your career. And I can understand why 25% of people would drop out if you don't get into the specialty or the area that you want to go into. 'Cause I think as a nurse, when you start your training, you kind of have an idea of what kind of nursing you want to do. Would you agree?
I think some people do, and other people think they do, but
Mm.
then find that it actually isn't what they thought it was gonna be, and I think that that's nursing overall, really. A lot of us go in there thinking that we know what it's gonna be like, and you get there and you're let loose, and it's like, "Actually, this is nothing like what I thought it was gonna be." Um, so I think we get some people that and you see them, and they're usually the ones that do cope the best because they know where they wanna go. They've got a firm hold on that. They're open, they love it, and they go down that route, and they're great. Um,
Mm.
that didn't happen for me. Like, I was like so many nurses and went, "I wanna do ED or ICU." I could not imagine anything worse now, to be honest. Because because I thought that those were the places that you go to be the best nurse, right? They're those glorified roles. And I actually ended up falling into palliative care and loved it, even though there was also a lot of struggle and trauma in learning to deal with that sort of space. I actually ended up loving it, and I have such a passion for that now. Um, but some people don't allow themselves that space to shift, I guess, if it doesn't turn out how they think it should turn out as well.
I love what you just said there about how um, nursing isn't just those glorified parts, the ED and the ICU. And that's something I've grappled with throughout my career because I now work in a very small private facility and it's mostly day surgery. And I used to think to myself, this I'm not being a real nurse. And I'm like, "No, Elena, you are. You're providing the nursing service, you're looking after people." But it was that, like you said, it's that cultural thing. Those areas like ED, like ICU, the ones we see on the TV, they've all been glorified, and people think that's what nursing is.
Yeah.
I think that's something yeah.
We go into, like if you don't do ED or ICU, then, it's acceptable to go to like theatre or to go to, maybe med surg. You certainly don't want to do like any of these, don't do community, don't do aged care, don't do, those are not, those are kind of where the leftovers go, is what we're told, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in actual fact, like those are, I live in a rural area and I've done community nursing out here with older people and with people in palliative care. And it is a hugely necessary area with nurses that do this stuff. Maybe tooting my own horn a little bit, but you've got to be autonomous. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be able to relate to different people. Like these are all skills that don't get enough credit in nursing as it is, and they're hugely valuable. Like, we would have so many people, the hospitals would be even more full than they are now, and we know that that's a problem. If all of these people from community and aged care and everything all of a sudden didn't have nurses to look after them.
Absolutely. I think, and that's one of the beautiful things about nursing. I mean, there's many amazing things about nursing, but it's the broad spectrum of different roles that you can have. I mean, you can have a long and fulfilling career as a nurse, and you can change specialties multiple times and get all this amazing experience.
Oh, absolutely. That's the other big thing. People think that once they become a whatever nurse, that that's where they've got to stay, or, you can't deviate from that. And it's like, again, it's that identity thing. We say, okay, your identity is you're a nurse. That's who you are now. You're a ED nurse or you're an ICU nurse. Well, why can't you just be a nurse? And that's your job, not your whole identity. And why can't you do different things?
Yeah, that identity piece is huge for a lot of nurses, and I know I've worked with clients in the past who, especially when we're burning out, and I know I did it myself, it's that kind of almost crisis because you're like, "If I'm not a nurse, then what am I?" Because you're just so used to
Mm.
having that title.
Yeah, and this is where I think nurses in general, but especially new grads, come undone, and why it's so important to have that support at the beginning, not just in the grad year, not the grad support from the hospital, because all the hospital or the facility that you're in is interested in is shaping you to be a worker for them. That's all they're interested in. So you say, I've got a grad support program. The support is to become one of them. That's what that is. It is not support to become a well rounded nurse and human, integrating those things together. That's not what that is. So you lose your
Yeah.
self identity of being a nurse at that facility, and that is it. Everything else is comes second. And that's why we end up with so many nurses burnt out and unfulfilled, because they just have nothing else.
Yeah, they've been molded to fit into that box.
Yeah, and then, the nurses the new nurses then put their entire identity and all of their, um, self-worth and confidence in being deemed competent by that facility. You gotta get ticked off for all your skills.
Mm.
You get feedback from the senior nurses saying whether or not you've cut the mustard. "Yes, you're good enough. No, you're not good enough." And it's all tied to this identity of being a nurse in this place that kind of you can end up on this roller coaster of I'm confident, no, I'm not confident. I'm confident, no, I'm not confident. And now we're in this spiral of everything hinging on whether or not you are deemed okay to be a nurse or not.
That's really interesting because it is. I'm trying to think how I want to phrase this without rattling too many feathers. It's obviously we need to have competent nurses, so we need these checklists. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. It's like that the individual nurse could then rely on that extrinsic validation and forget to look inside themselves for that validation and realize that they are enough and they are doing a good job.
I mean, competent nurses, 100%, and we need that, but it needs to be balanced with
Mhm.
you being, not just ticking off the skills, but, how well do you relate to people? Can you build a rapport with people? Can you take a step back and not react to things? Can you look after yourself as well as you look after your patients? Because, we can't pour from an empty cup. So you can't just hinge everything on being a competent nurse, because that competence can actually get derailed when you're tired, burnt out, sad, upset, frustrated, and still pushing. Now you're no longer competent no matter how many sheets are ticked off, right?
Yeah, we it's a human-centered role, it's a human-centered environment, and we need to remember at the end of the day, we are human too, and we have all these emotions and needs that
Yeah.
same as our patients do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's the thing, if we come back to that identity as a nurse, what we need to do is maintain our identity as a human first.
Most definitely, 100%. I completely agree.
Always a human first. And then, like, I mean, how many other titles do we hold? People are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, aunties, uncles, daughters, sons, all these things. Why
Yeah.
are we, once we become qualified as a nurse and we jump into this thing and we're getting pushed and pressured, now everything else falls away and suffers because the whole nursing thing has been so glorified that to be a nurse means that everything else comes second.
Yeah, and the system perpetuates that by the shift patterns we work and the sacrifices we make as nurses, and we miss out on, things with family, with friends,
Mm.
because we are obligated to go into work and our roster dictates that we have to be there rather than at home with loved ones or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that that is where choosing, coming back to the different types of nurse, choosing a line of nursing with your career that aligns with your needs and values is really important. Um, we don't all have to do shift work if we don't want to.
Exactly. Do you know what? I'm going to share something, and I don't think I've ever shared it on the pod before, but I've been a nurse, right? This is just me. I have aligned myself in the role I'm in because it fits my lifestyle. And so I qualified in 2000. So next month it'll be my 25 years since I graduated. I have not done night shift since I was a student in the 90s. I have
Wow,
never worked Christmas my whole career.
well done.
I know. I think it's quite an achievement.
That is an achievement. That's where it's like when I graduated, I got a really good grad program, right? I got what was deemed a really good grad program. So, in a private hospital in Brisbane. One
Mhm.
of the private hospitals in Brisbane got this grad program, and it was great, and I did night shifts. My mindset was that I have to do my time.
Yeah.
Even though I knew that I didn't wanna do bedside nursing forever, I have to do my time. I have to do my share of night shifts. I have to do my share of this to be deemed a worthy nurse, right?
Yeah.
And then what I learned once I burnt out was that that actually wasn't necessary. Like, I burnt out spectacularly.
Oh,
Like,
bless you.
I literally fell apart and couldn't function.
Oh,
Um,
no.
and while I was going through all of that, I'm like, "Why do we do this for ourselves?" To ourselves, and how did I let it get to this? But again, it comes back to the humanness, right? Because it wasn't just work, it wasn't just nursing. There was all sorts of other things in life that I had pushed to the side and not acknowledged, not worked on, not dealt with, that added on to what I was dealing with nursing. So it wasn't just nursing burnout, it was life burnout. And from there, one of the really big things that I learned, and when we're talking about, missing out on life, boundaries.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that that was a thing. Like, I literally had no idea what boundaries meant apart from a physical fence around my property. Like, I didn't realize that boundaries meant if you get asked to do extra shifts, you're allowed to say no.
Mm.
Like, people don't realize it, especially new nurses, because they think they've got to put in that time and that sacrifice to be deemed a valuable member of the team, right? I have to say yes and do these extra shifts because I'm the new person.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing that and your experience. And I can relate to it because I know back before I burnt out, like you said, it's not just work sometimes. I know I've burnt out twice. The first time, it was most definitely a lot of stuff that I'd pushed to the side I hadn't dealt with. I mean, my mum died a year into my nurse training, and I got the grace of 4 weeks off or something. Then they're like, right, Elena, keep going.
Oh,
And I
no.
just got pushed back into uni. And I was like, I just kept going and kept going. And then it wasn't till just before my 21st birthday. So I was nearly a year out of uni. Um, I just fell in a heap because I hadn't dealt with the loss of my mum. And obviously at 21st, a huge milestone. And
Yeah.
my mum wasn't around. My mum was a nurse. Um, she died in a road traffic accident on her way home from work.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And I never dealt with it properly because I just kind of, like you said, I'm like, no, I've just got to keep going. I've got to be tough. I've got to do this. Mum wanted me to be a nurse. And I just kept pushing through. But then, yeah, the wheels came off not even a year into my role as an RN
Yeah.
because I hadn't dealt with all that stuff that had happened during my training in
And
my
that's
part.
the whether it's something that's happened in nursing, like, of course, we have to do it maybe in the moment in nursing, you know. I know as a palliative care nurse, you know, you go in, somebody's passed away, the family are all really upset. You've got to move to the next room with grace and, you know, you do have to push it down a little bit, but we shouldn't be pushing things down for so long that we just forget that they even existed. And what happens is it goes into the back of our minds and it sits there and it waits in our subconscious. And then it comes up in the most inconvenient time, in the most spectacularly viable way, and it completely overtakes your whole life. And you go, where did that come from?
Yep. I always say it's like I feel like when I look back now, it's like the pressure cooker, and just
Yeah.
suddenly the lid went flying across the room. Everything came flying out at the same time. It was a mess.
And this is why, like, things like counseling, debriefing, journaling, peer support, coaching, all these things are so valuable. And I mean, it's not even just nurses, like people in general should be seeking these sorts of things out on a regular basis to help them process things, especially in this day and age. But as nurses, we really do need to have a regular check in point of some sort to go, and we can't throw it on our families or our friends and stuff all the time, right? Because otherwise, we'd spend our entire lives sitting around a table with a charcuterie board and wine, like just bitching and moaning about our lives. But we want to have fun with our friends and family. So we
Yeah.
need somewhere safe and structured to offload that stuff and go, hey, how do I process this?
Yeah, having that support is so important. And I just want to circle back to something you just mentioned, and I think it's really a critical thing. Debriefing, especially when there's been an incident. I think debriefing, it often gets, yeah, we'll do it quickly. It's a tick box, and you walk away, and no one really actually gains anything from that, apart from there's a bit of paper that's got a few boxes ticked saying, yeah, we did it. But I won't get into the whole process of debriefing right now. But I think as humans, we need to debrief because we need to make sense of the thoughts and the feelings that we're having in our minds.
I think also sometimes, especially again at work, if there's been a particularly traumatic thing go on,
Mhm.
group briefs can be really helpful because it helps not normalize, but it helps you know you're not alone in feeling the way you feel.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was getting at. The group ones,
oh,
they're so important.
yeah, so that you can go, okay, well, I'm not the only one. I'm not soft. I'm not too sensitive. I'm not like we're all feeling sad about this or frustrated or angry or confused or whatever it is. Um, yeah, I think, you know, I think back to my time in palliative care, and I know that we had like, obviously, palliative care is all about death and dying, and we didn't have regular debriefs because I think it was just assumed that you just deal with it so much you're okay with it and you'll ask if you need help, and that wasn't always the case because who do you ask?
Mm.
And I think there really needs to be that either the nurses need to seek that out as being a regular thing, like scheduled, whether there's been an event or not. And I think that systems and hospitals and facilities need to have them offered up on a regular basis. Now, I can't tell you, and I'm pretty sure you've probably done the same thing, the amount of times I've tried to implement holistic self care, regular debriefs, all sorts of things in different facilities that I've worked as a nurse, as an educator, as whatever. And it's either, yes, we'll do it, and it happens a couple of times and then falls off, or they're just not interested in it because nobody's got time.
Yeah, it's something that gets overlooked so often, but it's a critical part of our ability to care for the patients.
Hmm. It is. And I think, like, I was speaking with a student recently who had gone nearly 2 weeks on placement and hadn't seen a facilitator,
Oh my goodness.
and of a 4-week cycle, and they had a really difficult time of it and were told, "Well, you should have contacted us and told us." It's like, "Well,
Okay.
yeah, but I thought I was gonna see a facilitator, but because the facilitators all work morning shifts and this particular student was on afternoon shifts, then she didn't see a facilitator." And it's like, well, there's a little bit broken there,
Mm.
you know? And so having those small little details that could change everything. And it's the same with grad nurses. Like, they don't always get to see their facilitators or their coordinators as often as they probably need to. And if they do, it's they pop up and they go, "Oh, I'm just popping up to see you. How you going? Is everything okay? Have you got all these things signed off?" There's no, "Okay, let's go and have a debrief. Let's go and do some reflection on your last couple of weeks and what's happened and how you felt about it. And if, what areas have you done really well and what areas are you struggling with? And how can we help you with those areas that you're struggling? What can we do?" Because the number of people that I see on socials, because I stalk all the socials with new grads now, that are saying, "Oh, I'm doing all of this stuff and I don't know this and I don't know that and I don't know who to ask." It's like, where's your NUM and your educator and your coordinator? And, like, there's a million people that should be doing this, and they're just not. And it's not fair on the grads at all.
No, it's not. Do you think I'm gonna ask a question here. I've got experience with grads as well, and this is where this is coming from. And do you think that there's a lack of resources in the facilities for the grads? Like, do we need more facilitators? Do we need more educators in there just to be able to, um, I don't want to use the word care for, but like facilitate a safe, a holistic experience for these grad nurses?
The short answer is yes,
Mm,
but it's not as simple as that. It's a very complicated situation. So we know that pretty much every facility in the whole country is short staffed anyway,
yeah.
overwhelmed, overworked, short staffed all the time with just general frontline people. Um, I know that we do need more support for grad nurses, and I think in the facilities would be amazing. But back to when we were first started this conversation, do they really care about them holistically? And if they do, then we need to have not just more facilitators and coordinators, we need to have people that are trained and focused on a holistic approach, not just coordinators to do what, I we all they all have their uh, certificate for and training and assessment, and they've got their master's degree or whatever. I've got a master's in clinical education. None of that taught me how to do proper debriefs and holistic care for people. I learned that myself through my burnout journey and integrated it together. Um, so I think that there definitely needs to be a shift in how we support the grad nurses, but it's going to take a lot of dedication and buy-in really from,
Mm.
we can't just add more people. We've got to add the right kinds of people to do the support.
So do you think, I'm gonna put something out there now because 'cause I'm sitting thinking as I'm listening to you. Do you think we should be putting coaches into the workplace?
I think that would be a great thing to do.
Hmm.
I think having the ability for people to see a coach, I mean, they've all got EAP, right? Everyone's got EAP. I have used it myself. I know lots of people have used it for general life things, for work things, for little bits and pieces. I think, though, when it comes to a new nurse trying to integrate themselves into the nursing life, and or a nurse, even nurses that are trying to figure out their career progression and stuff like that, I think we do need a specialist coach, guide, mentor system where they can actually go specifically to that person on a regular basis and get the help that they need to do what they need to do.
I completely agree. I mean, I've used EAP as well in the past for personal stuff, but when it comes to work, I think I often tap into my nurse colleagues
Mm,
because, they understand. You know what it's
yeah.
like yourself, and I'm sure the listeners all get it too. Like, there's things about nursing that you can't explain to someone who's not a nurse. It's just yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like that you can't explain how you're feeling or what happened. And most of the time the response is actually going to be that the person you're talking to is more traumatized than you are
Mm,
about it, and they weren't even there. Like, they can't comprehend what it is that you've had to deal with.
yeah.
And I think that that's the case for a lot of healthcare professionals, obviously. Um, but nurses do make up the majority of the healthcare force. So
Yeah,
you
well,
know,
they say we're the backbone, so, a lot lies on our shoulders.
absolutely,
It's a huge responsibility being a nurse.
it really is. It really is. And to go in there and go, okay, well, I've done uni for 3 years and 800 hours of placement, and here I go. Like,
Yeah,
and as you said, seeking support from colleagues and stuff. If you're new in the team and, sometimes you're only there for 3, 4, 6 months maybe, well, how do you know who to go to and how do you know who to trust? And,
yeah,
sometimes it's really hard to find the people that will work the best for you, I guess, when you're going through that.
yeah. That's so true. It's finding that confidant that you can really rely on and it's
Mm,
it's gonna stay with them and not go any further because
yeah,
there's yeah.
yeah,
It's that trusted person that you can talk to. It's finding them, and I think that's really important too because
yeah.
we all want to feel psychologically safe.
Absolutely. And, I encourage grad nurses to seek a mentor or a person, especially when it's so easy for them to find the people that aren't that person. Again, I see all of the comments and I even have messages from people saying, no, these people are, rolling their eyes because I can't do this or whatever. It's like, okay, well, find the person that is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
You really need
I
to
get
focus on that.
I get so frustrated when I hear those comments because 'cause I'm like, "We were all new once ourselves, we've all been there."
That's my big thing too. So, like, we all started somewhere, right? We were all students at some point, except for Florence Nightingale, and she's long gone, right? So,
Yeah.
we were all students at some point, and we all needed support, and we all needed somebody to guide us and teach us and show us. And you get one of two people I find in nursing preceptorship. So you get the ones that go, well, I had it tough and I'm fine, so you have to go through this baptism of fire too. Or you get the ones that go, I had a really hard time with people and a really good time with other people. I want to be the one that gives you a good time, and a good experience. So you get those two main ones, I find. Um, and I think it's so difficult for grads to find those people in those short amounts of time.
It's going back to what you were talking about earlier. It's that building rapport. When you're there for such a short period of time, it's hard to get that rapport. And especially with working um, shifts, if you're in that environment, like you're never working the same shift with the same person. Like,
Right.
obviously, rosters change and you end up, some days you'll be with one person, then you might not see them again for 3 or 4 days, even a week.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think then the other thing that I find is you get those nurses that go, "Oh, I don't want to deal with a student. Or I don't want to work with a new grad." Or, teaching, it's not my job to teach people. I'm not an educator. I'm not this, I'm not that. And it's like, well, okay, so the nursing code of conduct actually says that every single nurse has to be a teacher for a start. And the second thing is, I haven't done any study on it, but I'm pretty sure that it's those people that are going to complain when the new grads come out and they're not to the standard that they think that they should be.
I saw your post on socials recently about how it's in the nurses' code of conduct to teach, and I was like, "Oh, that's so powerful." I was like, "Yes, well done, Deanne, for sharing that." It's so true, we've all got an obligation to look after our junior colleagues.
Like, nobody's expecting you to all be, super competent at teaching everything all of the time, but at least provide some support and at least don't say, "I don't want to deal with this or you or have to worry about teaching anybody anything." Like, you can be kind and helpful without being a qualified educator or instructor.
Is that just a reflection of the system and how overwhelmed some nurses are feeling, that they feel that they just don't have the capacity to facilitate students or, you know, um,
Definitely part of it, but
mm,
I also think that there is an element of um, that they don't know how. So there was a time when I, as a facilitator for students, I actually thought of finding a way to teach nurses how to work with students, because once there's a simple system in place, it's actually not that difficult and it doesn't take up much of your time when you're working with a student. It can actually be really beneficial to you and to your patients and to your workload if you do it right and if you do it using certain tools and strategies. But
I don't
then,
yeah,
yeah,
carry on.
they're overwhelmed and they don't know what they don't know. And I think that, that makes it really difficult for them. So they lash out and go, "Well, I don't want to do it."
Going back to what you just said there about the education piece, I know when I qualified, I mean, I trained back in Scotland, I wasn't in Australia. But back then, once we'd been out of uni, I think it was 6 months, don't quote me on that, but there was a certain period of time had to pass, and then we went back to uni and we did this facilitator training so that we could then precept our students when they came out into our workplaces.
I think that's a great
Mm,
thing to have. Like, if we're expecting, so when we go to nursing school or university or whatever we call it now, you get 3 years learning how to do clinical stuff. And yet, in the code of conduct and our standards and everything else, there's all these other things that nobody ever tells you how to do. So I 100% think that having a course or something where people can learn how to do that, I think that would be great.
yeah, I think people are just scared because they don't know what to do with students and they might get it wrong.
Yeah. And of course, like, when students do things and they're under our preceptorship, then it's on us and that's our registration, it's our career, and it's our everything. And I get that.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, there
again,
could be an element of fear, couldn't there?
100%. And I think that there could also be, I think that that's where that training comes in that you mentioned that you got. If we could give people a course or some sort of guidance as to how to work with students, what that all looks like, what your expectations are, and things like that, and how to protect yourself when you're working with a student, I think that that would go a long way to helping nurses be a lot more open when they're working with students. And I think you would get a lot more students that have better experiences, and you would get a lot more grads that have better experiences, simply because they've got more people that aren't afraid to work with them.
Yeah, it's so multifactorial, isn't it? The
It's very
support
complex, and
around.
I think that that's absolutely why nothing's been done about any of it, because it's in the too
Yeah,
hard box.
yeah. We just keep putting. We just. It's like we're putting bums on seats. Like, yeah, we've got this amount of nurses. We just keep pushing them through, but we're not actually equipping them with the skills they need to hit the ground running.
Well, I mean, absolutely, because we've got we had this whole period of fee-free TAFE, so people could go and do their diploma of nursing to become an EN for free. We've got paid prep placements to help ease the cost of living. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but that's a mess at the moment.
Mm.
We've got all these other things, but none of it's addressing the massive, huge herd of elephants in the room, which is once you can train as many people as you like. If you're not supporting them once they get into those roles, and you're not giving them the pay and the respect and everything else that they deserve, then they're not going to stay, and you're just going to have to go back to square one.
That 25% attrition rate's just going to rise, isn't it?
Yeah, like there's no point in training more people if you're just going to keep doing it the same way that isn't working.
Yeah, we need to start equipping nurses with, I hate using this word, but the soft skills that they need to survive in the job, because that's how the business world they describe these skills that we're talking about as these soft skills. And I don't think it's soft skills. I think it's human skills. It's being human. It's understanding our emotions. It's understanding how to regulate ourselves. It's understanding how our subconscious works. It's,
Yeah,
all this amazing stuff that you do and you teach these grads. And I think it's wonderful what you're doing, Deanne.
thank you. I'm very excited about it. I really hope that if I can make enough of a difference to enough people, then hopefully the culture of nursing will eventually shift from one of nursing being this self-sacrificing, burdensome job, calling, your whole taking over your whole life, to being a what it should be, which is a really rewarding um, profession that you can be proud of, but you can also do other things. You can also have a life and live a very happy, fulfilled life. Um, and I think, you know, if more new nurses learn that thriving early in the profession isn't about being the toughest nurse, but it's about being the most human.
Oh, that's so powerful. I love that. It's not about being the most toughest nurse, it's about being more human. That's really good because we are human and we're dealing in a human industry.
I think when we bring our humanness into nursing, it actually makes us better nurses.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
We just try and be the tough, clinical, technical nurses. I mean, sure, those skills are very valuable, especially in, certain areas. But what I've learned, especially in, community and palliative and different areas like that, but it goes for everywhere, no matter where you go. The humanness actually can make you a much, much better nurse. And it actually makes your job easier because your patients and clients won't see you as just a nurse, they see you as a person.
Yeah. That person centered care is what we get told time and time again about, but we have to remember to do it for ourselves too.
Exactly. That's the big thing. Like person-centered care, being all compassionate, being the most caring profession. Why don't we start with ourselves and each other?
Exactly. Yeah. That self-compassion, that compassion for our colleagues, the self-awareness that, yeah, yeah. We're both singing from the same hymn sheet here. I love this conversation, but it's bringing that humanness back into nursing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been a really awesome conversation. Thank you, Deanne.
I'm sure that we could talk for hours.
I'm sure we could. There's so many things buzzing in my head, and I'm like, Elena, stay on track, don't get sidetracked.
We'll go down all of the rabbit holes.
Maybe there's more podcasts to come in the future. Um,
Maybe.
yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Where can the listeners find you if they would like to have a look at your work? You're on Insta, I know that. I'll put the link in the show notes. What's your website?
So I am on Instagram and Facebook, undergraduate nurse coach. I do not have a website at this
Okay.
point. I do have a stand store,
Okay.
uh, undergraduate nurse coach as well. The link is on my Insta and my Facebook for that, which has links to different things that I'm doing. So there's a free new graduate confidence guide there that I
Perfect.
developed because new nurses said that the biggest thing that they struggle with is either building confidence or losing confidence and not knowing how to get it back. So I made a free guide about that. So, and all the information about all my coaching and everything is on there as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you for listening to the Happy Nurse podcast. If you've enjoyed today's content and would like to join the Happy Nurse community, head over to Facebook and check out the Happy Nurse AU Facebook page and request to join the Happy Nurse community. Also, check out happynurse.com.au for access to free downloads and subscription to my blog. See you soon, and in the meantime, remember to always offer yourself the same compassion that you so freely give to others.